We're ready to go.
Okay, today we're going to have a go at a 4-stroke weed eater. I picked this up as part of the garage sale last weekend, and it was sitting in a corner until now. Now, I know a lot of you guys aren't real fond of the 2-strokes, but personally I love them. The 4-strokes for me just sound slow compared to a little 2-stroke motor. But let's get to work on this one and see what we've got. Let's see if we got lucky or if we just threw $10 into the wind. Okay, today we're playing with garage sale finds. This one is a 4-cycle weed eater, and it's quite possibly the biggest weed eater I've ever seen in my life. The thing is a bit of a giant, but I'm thinking maybe we'll put a rototiller head on it, because I'll bet it's got a ton of horsepower for its size. So let's get a look at her and see what she's got. Now, the first thing I noticed when I was buying it was fuel lines weren't attached. So we're going to start off by replacing fuel lines on it. Now, fuel lines on one of these are actually pretty easy. It's a quick little job. She needs an air filter. The air filter's been squished funny, so God knows what this carburetor's eaten over the years. Let's go ahead and pop the base off and get a little bit of room to work. Okay, the fuel lines don't look much better on the top than they do on the bottom, I suppose. That's okay, we're replacing them anyway. And I can see the primer bulb is also shot. There we go. And you'd be surprised how often this particular style carburetor works just fine, even though it's been sitting for a little while. Now, this one definitely needs a primer bulb. You can see it's got a split in it right there. But we're going to throw some fuel lines on, throw a primer bulb on it, and see what happens. See if we get lucky. Okay, very good. Let's put him off to the side. Okay, let's have a look inside the gas tank. And you can tell that hasn't been off for a long time. And looking inside the gas tank, you can tell it hasn't been off for a long time. So that's going to need a good cleaning before we do anything. I can hear the fuel filter banging around in there. There she goes. Yep, that's more than shot. Okay, very nice. Now you can get a good look inside there. You can see it's a wildlife preserve in there. Okay, it didn't come out as clean as I hoped it would, but it's clean enough, I suppose, for government work. So now let's throw some fuel lines in her. And we're going to do that while it's off the machine, because it's just a ton easier now. So we're going to taper the end of this and hook it on that, pull it through. You can try to push them through the hole, but it'd never work. Even if you're doing your own at home, you still want one of these. You can get them on Amazon or whatever, included with fuel lines for pretty cheap. There we go, that looks pretty good. So that'll go to our fuel inlet. And we got a shorter one that's going to go to our fuel return, our little purge return. And note the little taper we put on this. That's just to make it a little bit easier to pull through the little hole and get started. So you can see the little taper came part of the way through. So it gives us something to pull before we get to the full wide pipe. Now, remember, the purge line only has to be inside the tank, so it doesn't have to be very long. This is actually a lot longer than it needs to be. So let's set the tank back on and throw it back together and see what we've got. Well, I am just not coordinated today. There we go. You know, you have one day you're just the slickest thing in the world, and the next day, not so much. Okay, there's one. And there's the other one. This will give us a chance to look inside the carburetor and decide how we feel about it, because we may want to give the whole carburetor a bath before we put her back together. Diaphragm actually looks pretty okay. It's got good flexibility to it, and that's what it's all about for those. So let's split this off. There we go. We'll pop the primer bulb off and pop a new one on. And we'll take this and match it up by size. Perfect. Throw a new one in here. Let's see what we've got. Okay, that was dancing around a little bit, so I don't think she was quite tight enough. There you go. There you go. And, oh, that's a whole lot more. There you go. And this carburetor might want a little bit more attention than this, but it's so easy to take off and put back on. We figure we'll go ahead and test this first and find out. Let's go ahead and hook up the throttle and the airbox and see what we've got. And the fuel lines went from being really long to not necessarily being as long as they were. Okay, the rubber gasket is in the base, so we're good there. Come on, buddy. There you are. There you are. Okay, our return line's good. Let's put our lid back on our gas tank and give it a run. Okay, for those of you that were really paying attention, we were running without the choke when we started it last time, and it still started up on the second or third pull and ran okay. So let's start her up now and see what happens with the choke on. Yep, she's a happy little camper now. Okay, that came out pretty well. We put a new air filter on it, put new fuel lines on it, new filter, and a new primer bulb, and she started right up. And first time we started it, probably hadn't been running a couple of years, and it started on second or third pull without the choke on. Can't argue about that at all, so it's a pretty sturdy little unit. I appreciate everybody watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks.